Hello and welcome back. When I talk about NIO on this channel, it's not really generally about the stock or your investment. I talk about the NIO vehicles, the NIO community, NIO houses, NIO drinks, NIO life, all that kind of stuff. All those things are inextricably linked to the stock. They're not wholly distinct from each other. So because of that, you can actually glean a lot about your investment from watching my channel. But let's be real, this is not an investment channel. So what I'm getting at here is that I get a lot of questions and comments about the stock price, my predictions for the stock, things like that. And that's not what I'm here for. And that's not what I'm here to give you. But I still think that you can learn a lot about the company and your investment from watching this. Now, with that being said, today's video might be more along the lines of investment type advice. It's not financial advice, blah, 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 blah. But you might learn a little bit more about China and the state of NIO here currently. Today's video is pretty much a follow-up to a video I made about a month and a half ago talking about why NIO cannot sell cars currently. And I do think it's important for me to say that I don't think it's because there's not enough TV screens in a NIO, which some people have said. I mean, maybe for some people, the amount of screens is a main factor, but I think for most people, that's not it. So in that previous video, I talked about a friend of mine who had her salary slashed from like 25,000 to 20,000, it should have been, I believe. And when she was looking for another job in Shanghai, she said, oh, I can't find a job that is going to pay me what I deserve or what I would have earned previously. The jobs were now offering like 15,000 RMB instead of 25 or 30,000, which she previously was earning. So if you want to hear that story, go back and watch that video. Anecdotes don't provide a really clear, vibrant picture. They don't tell you the whole story. It's just one by one by one. You can learn something, but it's not the whole thing. So the reason why I'm following up on that anecdote is because I actually saw an article yesterday that covered some of this stuff that I talked about in that video. So I felt kind of vindicated and I want to share it with you. So this article comes from the Asia Times. You can go to asiatimes.com and read it. I put a link in the description. The title of this article is called China Retail Sales Growth Slow, Job Market Shaky. And so this article tells you exactly what I was telling you, a month and a half ago. It tells you that many people are getting their salaries cut. Many people are unsure about their future economically. They say an era of salary deduction may be coming soon. Many people are not willing to spend money as they are either having their pay cut or they're at risk of redundancy. Most people who are already at work will face a salary cut this year. It also says that there's a columnist at lanjinger.com, which is a financial news website, have written in an article recently published that many employees at investment banks and brokerages have also been told that they will receive reduced salaries and bonuses this year. Now in China, most of the time you get a salary, you get paid month by month. And also at Chinese New Year, Spring Festival, you get an additional month's salary as a bonus. It's like a 13th month. So if your salary is 20,000 a month, most people will count on in January or February at Spring Festival to get 40,000. This is how it's been the whole time I've been in China. Every company I've worked for has paid bonuses like that. The company I worked for in China, the investment company, they gave me more than double a salary as a bonus, I think my second year there. This is very normal. And now it says salaries are being cut, bonuses are not being paid, or they're being reduced. So this is obviously not good. The article also says that a Chinese vlogger has said that some IT workers are experiencing 30 to 50% pay cuts. So my friend, hers went from 25 to 20K per month, which is like, I'm not good at math, 20% pay cut. So in here, people are saying 30 to 50% pay cuts. Hopefully now you no longer need to take my word for it. You no longer need to listen to my anecdote. You see that this is happening across the board, across China. So why does something like this affect NIO more than other car companies, at least in my opinion? What I think is that it's because of their business model, which is, battery as a service. The people described in the article I just cited for you, they're professional people, highly salaried people. These are the people who are in the market for a new car usually, people who might be in the market for a NIO. And as you know, according to NIO, most users, they will choose battery as a service when they buy their car. In Norway, it's like 90%. I don't know the numbers for China exactly, but everybody I know that has a NIO, they pay for battery as a service. And if you're unsure about battery as a service, it's between 980 RMB and 1680 RMB per month to pay for renting your battery from NIO. And you also get free battery swaps, things like that. At least you used to. Things are changing now. But you're paying around 1,000 to 1,700 RMB a month, essentially, extra. Of course, this is in addition to your car payment, your insurance payment. You probably have a lot of other payments, your gym membership, your iQIYI, which is like Netflix, your house, your mortgage. You have all these payments, right? and you have no idea how much money you're going to be earning in say 6 months, which is very unusual for most people. We have an idea of what we're going to earn from our job, especially if we have a contract that says we're going to earn so much, X amount of dollars. So just think about it right now. Put yourself in the position of an average Joe. You're in the market for a new car. You want to get an electric car. You can buy a NIO, or you can buy a Li-Shang, or you can buy a Tesla, or you can buy a BYD. There's so many options available. A Zeekr, a lot of good cars available. You currently have a good job. You haven't got your salary reduced just yet. You're still making what you're expected to make. But you know what? You've heard stories from your friends, all around you who've had their salaries cut. Some even 50% of their salary has been cut. You've got a mortgage payment on your house, here in, let's say, Shenzhen, for example. It's a very expensive house. You're paying a lot of money for it, and you're probably upside down on it because there's a lot of properties available, over construction. I think most people are well aware of the property kind of crisis here in China currently. Even if you're not upside down on your home, you're realizing it's not a great investment, at least currently, because nobody's ever going to buy your secondhand home when there's tons of new inventory available, and the developers are just trying to get rid of houses any way they can. Like right now, there's so many deals on houses. Like it's crazy. I don't want to get into all that. I'm sure you can find other videos or articles if you're really interested. A lot of developers have been trying to offload properties and giving great incentives. So anyway, your home is probably not worth what you really think it is. Your salary is probably going to be reduced here eventually, or you're going to be made redundant. Like things are just not looking good. And then every time you go outside or you want to get away for the weekend, you go for a little weekend holiday, or you just go downtown in Shenzhen or Shanghai, and you see that there's still massive amounts of retail and shopping that's vacant. You still see that, the places that are open are just not as vibrant and alive and being used as much as they used to be. Restaurants aren't nearly as full as they were pre-COVID. And people will say, there's a lot of delivery now. We'll get into delivery later, so hang on to that thought. Essentially what I'm saying is that currently here in Shenzhen, where I spend most of the last couple months, but I've also Beijing, I've been to Shanghai, I've been to Guangzhou, currently things feel pretty bleak. And I'm not saying that I take no joy in that. Like I like China, I want China to succeed, but you can feel like kind of a weight. It's like very palpable when you go around and go outside. And especially since I just came back from Japan, where people were out shopping, people were out standing in line to go to restaurants, and just like things were moving and things were vibrant. And you always hear about Japan having such like a dire economy and stagflation and things like that, but you can really feel that they've started to recover from COVID more than say China has. At least that's the feeling I get when I'm there versus here. So okay, moving on. You're still that average Joe and you want to buy your EV. How do you ever justify battery as a service? There's like no way in heck you can justify it unless you're making a whole lot more money than you're putting out every month for your payments. In my opinion, it would be really, really hard to justify locking yourself into battery as a service if you're really unsure of how much money you're going to be earning in 6 months or 3 months or 1 year, or if you're unsure of if your home will even have any value, or even you'll ever be able to sell it and make any kind of return on your investment. People have been predicting the downfall of China and the collapse of China for decades, and it's never come to fruition. And I'm not a doomer about China. I don't think China's going to collapse. I've been in China long enough to see some shit here. Things can be pretty bad. Things can be pretty bleak. But everything from my experience is China has come out the other side and been stronger. So I'm not here to predict the downfall of China. I do always have confidence that China will come out the other side unscathed and do better. But really, it feels more dire than it ever has in the past to me. That doesn't make it true. So anyway, like I mentioned, I came back to China a couple days ago from Japan. I took a taxi from the airport and I talked to the taxi driver. And if you spend any time in China, you will know that taxi drivers, especially overnight taxi drivers, they will talk your ear off. They love to talk to foreigners, and they love to talk about politics. It used to be, oh, I love Obama. And this was, 10, 12 years ago. But now it's quite different. Anyway, in the car, we talked about the Ukraine war. We talked about Taiwan, reunification. We talked about a lot of things. It was, it's like an hour drive from the airport. So anyway, this driver's from Guangxi province. It's another southern province next to Guangdong. And he's been in Shenzhen for like 15 years, he said. Been a taxi driver this whole time. He said that he is going back to Guangxi. He doesn't want to stay here anymore. And the reason why is ever since zero COVID ended, he said he cannot make any money. And you'd be like, wait a second, why is that? The economy, reopened, everything's open again. There should be more people taking taxis than ever before. What he said was during zero COVID, A lot of people didn't want to take the bus. They didn't want to take the subway. If they had to go somewhere, they would take a taxi because they felt that was safer than, crowds on public transport. Now that things are back to normal, people take public transport again. They take the subway, take the bus. He also said that now there's more and more, rideshare, Uber, Lyft type services. And those services are having a complete race to the bottom on the price. There's literally so many. I'm going to put up on the screen right now. There's like an app that kind of aggregates different rideshare services, and you can see the prices from somewhere nearby here to the airport. It's, a 45-minute to an hour drive, depending on the time of day, traffic. And if you hail a taxi, like a literal regular taxi, it's going to cost 120 RMB-ish, maybe 140 even. Now, if you take one of these ride shares, you can see cheapest is about 58 RMB. 58 RMB is about $8. For, an hour drive, $8. You have to pay the car, the fuel, the insurance. Obviously, if you're making $8 an hour of revenue, this rideshare company is not making any money. The driver's not making any money. There's no money to be had here. These companies are trying to, destroy each other and be the last one standing. But seriously, there's no way these people can actually be making any money. So as for this taxi driver, he told me to rent a taxi in Shenzhen from the company that he rents from, it costs $10,000 a month. They pay $10,000 a month. They get to have the car the whole month. So they don't take any days off. They work 30 days a month, and they just work, drive. And he said prior to COVID, 2019, prior to even there being so many apps, it used to be just basically Didi and maybe a couple others, but now there's so many apps. So prior to all that, he used to be able to take in 20,000 RMB a month in fares. And he said since he pays 10,000 to the company, everything, every fare is what he gets. He doesn't split the fares or anything that with the company. He just pays rent for the taxi. During COVID, he could still make decent money, maybe 5,000 or 6,000 a month. So 15,000, 16,000 RMB in fares. Okay, so now he says here in post-COVID, competing with robo-taxis and rideshare apps and all this stuff, the race to the bottom, he says he makes maybe 13,000 if he's lucky in sales each month, which means he can take home at most 3,000 RMB a month, which of course is impossible to survive in Shenzhen or any tier 1 city on that kind of salary. Previously, as an uneducated guy from rural Guangxi, making 10,000 RMB a month in Shenzhen is a great deal. Making 3,000 currently in 2023, no good. He's going back home after trying to make a go of it here in the big city for 15 years. So that brings me to another article about delivery drivers and rideshare and all that sort of thing. So there's also that link in the description. Essentially what it says is there's too many drivers, there's too many companies, and that drivers right now are delivering half of what they used to. So they used to have 60 orders a day, now they're doing 30 orders a day, something like that. And as you all know, or maybe most of you know, these drivers primarily get paid per delivery. I think they get a base salary. It's not very high, and then they get paid on top of it, that every delivery they make. So my thesis here, I guess, is that pretty much everybody from the bottom to at least the upper middle class are feeling a pain in some capacity. Of course, probably the really rich, the ultra rich, probably aren't feeling it as much as other people. They might be feeling it some, but I have no insight into that currently. But normal people, everybody you interact with is feeling it in some capacity. I would love if there's any people living in China, Chinese people watch this video, can comment on what I'm saying here. Tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm right. Just what's your experience? I would love to hear it. But for me, that's my impressions and that's what I'm seeing. And I think these articles kind of back it up. Fiscally or economically responsible people, in times like this, they don't want to opt for battery as a service. They will opt for a different car. It's simple as that. The business model is not really viable in really poor, dire economic times. If you don't know how much money you're going to have, you're not going to commit to paying money every month for something. Completely irresponsible. Now I think in boom times, like probably when NIO was formulating this plan in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, people were fat and happy, right? Money was just, the tap was on. So now that the flow of money has kind of dried up, battery as a service is not really a great business model. That's just how it is from my perspective. Now, of course, like I mentioned, that's not the only reason they were having trouble selling cars. Like there was a switch over to the second generation platform for different models like the ES6, which has now been moved over. There was also the fact that NIO didn't join in the price war, which now they kind of have. There's also the lack of, some people say, mini TV screens in the car, which again, I don't buy into that theory. Ultimately, the problem was just the business model wasn't good for a difficult economic time. I really don't think there's anything wrong with, the brand image or the cars themselves. Like, I watched the ET5 touring launch on Bilibili, which is like Chinese YouTube, and all the reactions were really, really positive. So many people were like, this car's awesome, I want to buy it. All the comments were good. And of course, there is some kind of self-selection bias there with people who are on NIO's Bilibili channel watching a live stream about a car, probably are already predisposed to liking the car. So you can't take it as, gospel. But I do think that, getting the internet's reaction to things is a good way to gauge, genuine response in a lot of ways. So I think for NIO's future here in the next few months is things will improve, mainly because the transition from NT1 to NT2 is pretty much completed. Not quite yet, but pretty close. They've also joined in the price war, given more incentives to people who don't want free battery swaps, things like that. All the stuff you guys have seen. People still do like the car and like the brand and see value in it. So I don't think that's the problem. But I do think that, actual biggest kind of like elephant in the room here is the state of the Chinese economy, which again is pretty dismal. It's pretty tough out here for people. So if you do want to see, the NIO investment turn around, you want to make some money with NIO stock, it's not going to happen if the economy here in China stays in shambles. NIO's not going to sell cars because they're not going to be able to get people to buy into battery as a service. But if you see in the next 3 months or 6 months things start to improve with the economy, whether it's my reporting on it for you, or whether it's news articles or videos on YouTube or whatever, if things start to improve there, then I do think that NIO sales will kick up quite a bit. If things continue to deteriorate here, I think we're all in for a lot of pain for any investment in NIO that we've made. Not financial advice, blah 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 blah. These are just my observations. So if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and like, subscribe, ring bell, comment, Patreon, PayPal, buy me a coffee. Nebula? Curiosity stream? Subscribe if you want. All right, bye.